Freedom begins in your heart. 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 Let my voice begin to sing and speak from my heart. Let my voice begin to sing and speak from my heart. Let my voice begin to sing and speak from my heart. Let my voice begin to sing and speak from my heart. Let my voice begin to sing and speak from my heart. Let my voice begin to sing and speak from my heart. Freedom begins in your 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 heart.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the First Unitarian Congregation of Ottawa. My name is Justine de Jager, and I serve as the Treasurer on the FirstU Board of Directors. Normally, if you would like more information about FirstU, it would be available at the welcome table at the back of the pews. However, while the FirstU building is closed because of the COVID-19 virus, you may instead contact us through email at welcome@firstunitarianottawa.ca. I repeat, for more information, please email us at welcome@firstunitarianottawa.ca. After the service and future services, our normal hospitality hour will be replaced by a virtual get-together. If you would like to join us for the hospitality hour on Zoom, please see our website, www.firstunitarianottawa.ca, or our weekly email newsletter, the EUU, for information on how to do so. Whatever your heritage, whatever your faith, whomever you love, and however you identify, today you are a part of our spiritual community. Welcome. We hope you come back soon.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Sharmila Curry, and I'm delighted to be your worship associate this morning. Even though our doors have been closed to do our part in preventing the spread of disease, our congregation has remained connected and active. We are still a vibrant congregation with open minds, spirits, and hearts. I hope this moment finds you well. This morning, I welcome you into all of today's worship participants' homes. Thank you for welcoming us into your home. Although we find ourselves in separate places, here we are together, online, listening, connecting, and soon singing. Just a few more announcements. In these times, staff are working remotely and are monitoring emails during usual working hours. Phone calls will be checked less regularly, so please do email staff for a quicker response. As mentioned, it is more important than ever to sign up to receive the EUU, our weekly email newsletter. Check our Facebook page and our web page for notices and updates. Our online calendar is as full as ever. Do look to this week's EUU and website for a variety of announcements, including trivia nights, the discussion circle, meditation, chalice groups, climate action, Sunday morning forums, how to get involved with the annual pledge drive, and the weekly religious exploration lesson. There is also information regarding the Chew on This campaign to mobilize people across Canada to call and write in to end poverty. Here end today's announcements.
Bonjour. Good morning, everyone. I am the Reverend Pat Guthmann Haresch, and this morning we celebrate the 75th anniversary of the creation of the United Nations. And so a reading from the UN Environmental Sabbath Service. We join with the earth and each other to bring new life to the land, to restore the waters, to refresh the air. We join with the earth and with each other to renew the forests, to care for the plants, to protect the creatures. We join with the earth and with each other to celebrate the seas, to rejoice in the sunlight, to sing the songs of the stars. We join with the earth and with each other to celebrate the seas, to rejoice in the sunlight, to sing the song of the stars. We join with the earth and with each other to recreate the human community, to promote justice and peace, to remember our children. We join with the earth and with each other. We join together as many and diverse expressions of one loving mystery for the healing of the earth and the renewal of all life. May it be so. We'll light the chalice. Let us sing the chalice song.
Chalice, chalice, burning bright, help remind us with your light of how we'd like to live each day with love and truth helping lead the way.
Hi to everyone. Hope everyone is having a lovely Sunday. Today I'm sharing with you a short story. It's about a flower and the moon. There once was a little gray planet that was very sad. The people living there hadn't looked after it, despite them having all the inventions and spaceships you could ever need. They had contaminated the whole countryside so much with rubbish and pollution that there were no more plants or animals left. One day, a little boy was walking on the planet when he passed a cave and noticed a small red flower inside. The flower was very sick, almost dying. So the boy carefully dug up the flower with roots, soil, and everything. Then, he started looking for a place where he could look after it. He searched all over the planet, but everywhere was so contaminated that there was no place the flower could possibly live. Then he looked up at the sky and noticed the moon. It seemed to the boy that maybe the plant could survive there. So the little boy put on his astronaut suit and climbed into a spaceship. He put the little red flower in the back, and off they went to the moon. Far away from all the pollution, and with the boy visiting it every day to tend to it. The flower started to grow. The flower was so well cared for that it had soon germinated, giving birth to others, and these other flowers spread onto other flowers. Before long, the whole moon was completely covered with flowers. That's why, whenever the little boy's flowers open up, for a few minutes, the moon takes on a soft red sheen, like a warning light. Maybe it's telling us that if you don't look after your planet, a day will come when flowers will only be able to grow on the moon. I hope you all enjoyed that little story, and wishing everyone a wonderful Sunday.
Sing it for the creatures, sing it for the trees, sing it for the earth in need. Sing it from the mountains down to the sea, sing it for the earth in need. I can hear the birds a-singing, listen to the earth in need. I can hear the oceans rolling, listen to the earth in need. Sing it for the creatures, sing it for the trees, sing it for the earth in need. Sing it from the mountains down to the sea, sing it for the earth in need. I can hear the birds a-singing, listen to the earth in need. I can hear the oceans rolling, listen to the earth in need. Sing it for the creatures, sing it for the trees, sing it for the earth in need. Sing it from the mountains down to the sea, sing it for the earth in need. I can hear the birds a-singing, listen to the earth in need. I can hear the oceans rolling, listen to the earth in need. Sing it for the creatures, sing it for the trees, sing it for the earth in need. Sing it from the mountains down to the sea, sing it for the earth in need.
This is the time in the service when we are drawn closer to the heart of love at our center, and hold those, both near and far, loved ones and strangers in our hearts. Within this moment and circle of community, here at Love's Hearth, may you find renewal and possibility. May compassion be our shelter from storms of bigotry, hate, and indifference. May we together glimpse and move toward the good that is yet to be in our lives and the lives of the greater circle of all the world. And so today, like we do, I will place stones in the water for those of you, those you are thinking of, joys and concerns in all of our hearts. A stone of care. For all the children and families who won't be having the same kind of Halloween you were hoping for this year, may we think of how we might have Halloween fun all in our own circles and bubbles. And a stone of care, another one. We are thinking of Marlene, who is back home, I hope, from the Heart Institute. May your healing go well, and may this be a time with fewer worries for you and Alex. May it be so. A stone for all those joys and sorrows that in these days of not running into each other at 30 Cleary in the sanctuary, all those joys and hearts that we're holding inside, and perhaps we're not sharing as much with each other. We just don't think about it, that maybe we don't call or think about that others in the congregation might want to hear what's here resting with us, for all those joys and concerns not spoken. And a last stone for all the good wishes and concerns we have for those within our congregation and circles, for those in the greater community, and for all the world in its glory and beauty, and in its despair for everything. One last stone. May we take a moment of silence, shared silence, and be still together.
Earth, my body, water, my blood, air, my breath, and fire, my spirit. Earth, my body, water, my blood, air, my breath, and fire, my spirit. Earth, my body, water, my blood, air, my breath, and fire, my spirit. Earth, my body, water, my blood, air, my breath, and fire, my spirit.
This morning's reading, Poem for the One World, by the late poet Mary Oliver. This morning, the beautiful white heron was floating along above the water, and then into the sky of this, the one world we all belong to, where everything sooner or later is part of everything else, which thought made me feel for a little while quite beautiful myself.
The other day when I picked up my son from school, he said to me, "Did you hear that Halloween was canceled?" You heard that, right? That was advised in Ottawa, yes? I said, no, not canceled. We just need to figure out a way to celebrate it safely. Just you and me and Dad. We just can't go door to door, and hopefully others won't come to our door. Well, he was less than thrilled with my response, and certainly not convinced that we will be able to have more fun than we would on a regular Halloween, right? But somehow or another, I am determined that we are going to have fun on Halloween. Now you might say, why am I talking about Halloween on United Nations Sunday? And I think because Halloween brings in me probably my earliest memories of the work of the United Nations. For I, like many children, was first introduced to the work of the UN through UNICEF. In my childhood Unitarian congregation, Sunday school classes would head to the children's chapel for our own services before or after class. And as Halloween approached, the stories would turn to stories of children around the world who were helped by UNICEF. I especially remember Mrs. Butler, I think that's who it was, telling a gripping story about a boy who was trying to hide his leprosy from the others in his village, and how UNICEF helped provide him with medicine to cure his leprosy. But I know over the years there were other stories we were told, and I would imagine in my mind the lives of these children and families and villages on the other side of the world receiving life-saving aid from the United Nations. All these October stories in chapel led up to the passing out, yes, of the little orange Halloween boxes that we could take door to door to collect money for UNICEF while we tricked or treat. And I know that you had these boxes in Canada too. 120 countries from around the world were a part of this program. And UNICEF won the Nobel Peace Prize in 1965, just 19 years after its founding. In the early 1960s, the United Nations also started its World Food Program. And unfortunately, efforts to battle poverty and hunger continues. 60 years later, in 2020, the UN World Food Program won the Nobel Peace Prize. Canada is the second largest contributor to the World Food Program. So about 60 years after starting the World Food Program, food insecurity is on the rise in the world. Food insecurity caused by war, a global pandemic like COVID-19, the results of climate change and extreme weather events, all things that disrupt economies, the production and supply chain, contributes to crop failures. Jessica Ease, a postdoctoral researcher at Purdue University, notes, as the Nobel Peace Prize makes clear in this for the World Food Program, a world of peace and stability hinges upon everyone receiving the most basic of human dignities, the food they need to live. Everything is so connected, so interdependent in this world, this web of life we live in. In 1945, the world was recovering. It had been after the Depression from 2 world wars that reshuffled the global map, and nations gathered, replacing the earlier League of Nations with a hope to establish world peace and alleviating the world from poverty and disease and societal problems that contribute to creating instability and war. There are so many connections we as UUs have with the United Nations. A U.S. Unitarian, Adlai Stevenson, an attorney who became involved in public service, as a special assistant to the U.S. Secretary of State in 1945, worked with the Assistant Secretary of State Archibald MacLeish on a proposed world organization. So later that year, our UU, Adlai Stevenson, went to London, England, as the Deputy U.S. Delegate to be part of the preparatory commission that ended up creating the United Nations. Oh, and by the way, Archibald MacLeish would be the U.S. delegate to help found UNESCO, besides becoming known as a poet, playwright, and author. MacLeish rubbed shoulders with Unitarians, but I don't think he ever subscribed. Adlai Stevenson would continue in his life of public service and went on to also 2 failed presidential bids, but he was the 5th U.S. ambassador to the United Nations. Jean Baker, a biographer of Stevenson, notes that a Presbyterian pastor that knew Stevenson acknowledged that Stevenson's Unitarian rearing had imbued him with the means of translating religious and ethical values into civic issues. And according to one historian, religion never disappeared entirely from his public messages. It was indeed a part of his appeal. Frank B. Frederick, a U.S. Unitarian lawyer, was behind the creation of United Nations Day, actually, October 24th, as an official international UN commemoration of the anniversary. When in 1945 the UN Charter went into force. You can find the preamble of the UN Charter as a reading in our gray hymnal, number 475. The Charter being so simpatico with our own 7 principles, with its aspirations of working toward a global community of peace, affirming human dignity and worth, also gender equality. John Peters Humphrey, a Canadian legal scholar, jurist, human rights advocate, and Unitarian, was most famous as the principal author of the first draft of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, another document which parallels our own UU principles. The late Nelson Mandela referred to Humphrey as the, quote, father of the modern human rights system, one of ours. And of course, the Unitarian Universalist Office at the United Nations was founded in April of 1962, when the then U.S. Ambassador, the aforementioned Adlai Stevenson, wrote to the UUA president, Dana Greeley at that time, suggesting that each UU congregation nominate a UN envoy, and in 3 years the numbers grew from 300 congregations in the U.S. and Canada to now 500 congregations in North America send envoys to the UU United Nations office via email or in actuality and virtually. So many different ways we have ties, us UUs, with the UN. So what now? That's our history. What now? How might we as UUs engage with the good work of the United Nations? What has the UN done, and what are they doing lately? And isn't it an imperfect institution? The UN does have its detractors and critics, yes. How could anything go wrong when you get 100-some countries together? Of course they'd just cooperate beautifully. The UN has had its scandals, has made major mistakes, can become used, it seems, by superpowers. It is a human institution. But even with the blunders and bureaucracy, there is hope, yes? There's a list I found from 2018 which notes just a few of the UN's accomplishments since its inception. It has provided food to 90 million people in over 75 countries, assisted more than 34 million refugees, authorized 71 international peacekeeping missions, worked with 140 nations to minimize climate change, assisted about 50 countries per year with their elections. Maybe it should come to the U.S. Provided vaccinations for 58% of children in the world, helped about 30 million women a year with maternal health efforts, protected human rights with 80 treaties and declarations. So how might we UUs engage in this work? We do have an envoy, newly named Irvin Waller, to the UU United Nations office. Ask Irvin how we might engage. He has some ideas. You can look to our EUU this last Friday and learn how to donate to the work of the United Nations office. We can educate ourselves. The EUU noted the video Nations United, which is a good place to learn more about engaging with the UN's current work and what they're doing. The EUU also noticed that next week there are two United Nations events occurring of interest to Canadians. The Canadian Unitarian Council and the UU United Nations Office will be commemorating this 75th UN anniversary with a special virtual event co-sponsored by the NGO Committee on Human Rights. And there will be a virtual presentation next Friday on Islamophobia. Next Sunday, there will also be a webinar on how the U.S. election will impact climate justice. And I think afterwards there's a phone bank where you can call Floridians about how they might want to vote. All that you can go to our past EUU, Google the UU United Nations office, perhaps find some information on the Canadian Unitarian Council's website. Next spring, the UU-UN office, their annual intergenerational spring seminar, All In for Climate Justice, People Power Planet, will be, as it is annually, the seminar in April, and it will be focusing on climate and food justice. Google the UU-UNO office, and we'll be announcing it every once in a while in the EUU. You can participate now in planning that event or attend later. I know there are those here at FirstU who have memories as youth or adults going to New York before for these spring gatherings. Now the seminar will just be a click away, so learn more about that. We can stay in touch with the UN Association of Canada, see how we might support their work and what offerings they have. They have lots going on if you Google the UN Association of Canada and go to their website. To also know what is happening right now with the United Nations, of course, go to their website. There's so much there. But one needs to know about the 17 SDGs. Now, perhaps if you are a fan of Johann Sebastian Bach, you might be familiar with his use of the letters SDG. He had a habit of scribbling them at the end of compositions. Soli Deo Gloria. To God alone be the glory. That's not what I'm talking about, eh? The UN's SDGs refer to Sustainable Developmental Goals. The 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development was adopted by the UN in 2015 with the intent of providing a shared blueprint for peace and prosperity for people and the planet now and into the future. At the heart of the plan are these 17 SDGs to be taken up by all global partners. They recognize that ending poverty and other deprivations must go hand in hand with strategies to improve health and education, reduce inequality, and spur economic growth, all while tackling climate change and working to preserve oceans and forests. Yes, this interconnection of all these different strands of our life. That's why 17 SDGs. The Minister of Children, Families, and Social Development was appointed to head and lead Canada's implementation of the 2030 Agenda in close collaboration with all other ministers and their departments. Canada's plan is quite ambitious. Yes, Google Canada's plan with the SDGs. So what else might one do? Keep a fire under the government's plan to fulfill its SDG agenda, targets and indicators for a better world. I wonder here at FirstU whether the weekly discussion circle that Andrew heads up, I wonder if you all might be interested in each week looking into one of the 17 SDGs and figure out how we might end poverty and hunger and violence and build up our world, reduce climate change, renew ourselves. Something to ponder. Soon after our COVID-19 shutdown in March, I believe it was Susan Tanner who sent around a Guardian article by columnist and author Rebecca Solnit titled, "The Impossible Has Already Happened, What Coronavirus Can Teach Us About Hope." I want to read some from her long article. Rebecca noted, "The first lesson a disaster teaches is that everything is connected. In fact, disasters are crash courses in those connections. At moments of immense change, we see with new clarity the systems, political, economic, social, ecological, in which we are immersed as they change around us. We see what's strong, what's weak, what's corrupt, what matters, and what doesn't. When a storm subsides, the air is washed clean of whatever particulate matter had been obscuring the view, and you can often see farther and more sharply than at any other times. When this storm clears, we may, as do people who have survived a serious illness or accident, see where we were and where we should go in a new light. We may feel free to pursue change in ways that seemed impossible, while the ice of the status quo was locked up. We may have a profoundly different sense of ourselves, our communities, our systems of production, and our future." There's also another positive. She noted a friend, a climate campaigner in the Philippines, who said, "We are witness today to daily displays of love that remind us of the many reasons why humans have survived this long. We encounter epic acts of courage and citizenship each day in our neighborhoods and in other cities and countries. Instances that whisper to us that depredations of a few will eventually be overcome by legions of stubborn people who refuse the counsel of despair, violence, indifference, and arrogance that so-called leaders appear so eager nowadays to trigger." Rebecca ended her column with this: "Hope offers us clarity that amid the uncertainty ahead, there will be conflicts worth joining and the possibility of winning some of them. And one of the things most dangerous to this hope is the lapse into believing that everything was fine before disaster struck, and that all we need to do is return to things as they were. Ordinary life," Rebecca notes, "before the pandemic was already a catastrophe of desperation and exclusion of too many human beings, an environmental and climate catastrophe, an obscenity of inequality. It is too soon to know what will emerge from this emergency, but not too soon to start looking for chances to help decide it. It is," Rebecca said, "I believe what many of us are preparing to do." The pandemic has certainly taught us how very connected we are in this interdependent web of life in which we live and breathe and move with all and everybody around us. How many strands of the web are intertwined. How can you have peace when people are hungry? How can your economy thrive when people can't work because of disease or war? How can we feed the world when we don't tackle the climate catastrophe? May we keep a hold of hope in these times of uncertainty, keeping clear-eyed about truths before us, what we want to let go of, what kind of possibilities might lie ahead, how might we engage each other in the greater community and the global community in making the world a better place. As I close this United Nations Sunday message, I think of a reading I shared recently from my friend and colleague, the Reverend Dr. Andy Bakula, who serves 2 congregations in England. He ended his reading like this: "We certainly don't want to stay where we are, and we absolutely cannot and should not go back to the old normal. May our hearts guide us to a new future, one without the pain of the present, one without the insensitivity of the past. It is a future we will create, you and I together. May it be so."
Circle round for freedom, circle round for peace, for all of us imprisoned. Circle for release, circle for the planet, circle for each soul, for the children of our children. Keep the circle whole. Circle round for freedom, circle round for peace, for all of us imprisoned. Circle for release, circle for the planet, circle for each soul, for the children of our children. Keep the circle whole. Circle round for freedom, circle round for peace, for all of us imprisoned. Circle for release, circle for the planet, circle for each soul, for the children of our children. Keep the circle whole.
This is the time in our service that we usually accept the offering. You may go to our website or contact our finance manager to find out how you might keep up with your pledge or make a donation during these times. The 6th Principal Award is an annual recognition that the Unitarian Universalists at the United Nations Office grants to congregations who demonstrate their UU 6th principle of commitment to building a world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all. These congregations are awarded based on their financial support of and active engagement with the work of the UUUNO. Please consult this week's EUU or email the office at uuoffice@firstunitarianottawa.ca to find out how you can contribute to our UUs at the United Nations. We give these gifts freely. We receive these gifts gratefully. We dedicate these gifts to the work of the congregation, serving human wholeness, caring for the planet, upholding religious freedom, welcoming the stranger, loving one another.
Hi there, my name is Chris, and I've been asked for our pledge campaign to say a little bit about what I value at First Unitarian and why I contribute. So what I value most at First Unitarian is the community, the people. I think we have a lot of amazing people, and I really appreciate the friendships that I've made with people there. Our family actually discovered Unitarian Universalism when I was pregnant with my son Avery. We were actually looking for a religion that supported our existing beliefs, and we actually did like a church search, which I think is actually quite common for young families nowadays. A lot of people in my generation aren't necessarily raised in any particular religion, and a lot of us kind of feel a little untethered spiritually. So that's something, I came to UU because those beliefs were already really important to me, and I appreciate that our services are very spiritually nourishing and also educational. I also wanted my children to grow up learning those values as well, the worth and dignity of every human life. So I really appreciate that I was able to find that in UU. I also really value our music program, of course. We're so lucky. We have a great music director. We have 3 choirs to choose from. I mean, we're incredibly lucky to have that. And also our social justice work is also something that I think is very key at FirstU. I don't think you see that everywhere, definitely not in every church community. Obviously, I'm biased towards the Embracing Diversity Committee. I think that's a really awesome committee, but I know there are many others with lots of people doing really great work for Ottawa and for the world, and I think that's really important. Why I contribute. I think it's really important to sustain what already exists, all of those great things that I mentioned that already exist at FirstU, and I think it's important to grow into the future because we want to plan ahead. I worry sometimes that FirstU won't be able to carry on this legacy, so that's another reason that I really want to contribute, and I hope other people do as well. Financially, I don't contribute a lot. I'm a low-income single mother. I'm a student. I don't have a full-time job, but I do still contribute financially and, according to my income. And I think that's something that we should all do, as we can, as we are able. If we are unable to financially contribute, or we can also volunteer our time. So there's a lot of good committee work. I think it's difficult for us millennials to find time to volunteer. A lot of us are really busy, but I think it's important that we do if we're able, because we have a lot of new ideas to contribute, and that's something that'll help the congregation grow into the future. Thanks very much, and I hope our pledge campaign is very successful this year, despite the pandemic.
Let us close with words adapted from a prayer incorporating all of the UN's Sustainable Developmental Goals. Yes, all 17 of them. May we be united in these goals to end poverty, end exploitation, hunger, malnutrition, ensure good health, well-being, and fullness of life, provide a worthy education for all, ensure gender equality for all, make available clean water and sanitation, and the integrity of Earth's rivers, lakes, and seas. May we be united in providing clean affordable energy for all, and the restoration to equilibrium of the vital processes of the earth. Bring about ordered and sustained economic growth with the dignity of productive work. Build networks of industry, transport, and distribution that will serve human welfare and employ the creative genius of the human mind. Reduce inequality within and among the nations that impairs the order and justice of human society. Build towns and cities that are safe for human life, to sustain the wealth of human culture and be in balance with the natural world. Responsibly use the resources of the earth and the products of industry, both for human well-being and for the life of the planet. Urgently reverse climate change. Conserve the resources of the oceans and seas out of which all life emerged. Conserve and restore the life-giving soil and the sheltering forest so that the earth may breathe and produce its fruit. Develop structures of justice and peace that all may share equally in human society and in the life of its peoples and institutions. Renew our common commitment to the life of human society in harmony with Earth and with the resources available to sustain it. May we have the patience and perseverance to attain all this, so that from birth to death, all children, all people may enjoy the fullness of life and cherish this earth as our common home and a garden of delight. May it be so. Let us sing, Spirit of Life.
Spirit of life, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea. Could vidas fuori de justiça, ternurimo, cielo patuo, source de vie, viens vers moi, viens vers moi.
Go in peace, go in love, go in joy, and happy United Nations Day. Enjoy your day.
Let my voice begin to sing and speak from my heart. Let my voice begin to sing and speak from my heart. Let my voice begin to sing and speak from my heart. Let my voice begin to sing and speak from my heart. Let my voice begin to sing and speak from my